Hi, welcome to another Pastor's Study. This week we had Psalm 150, the last psalm in the book of Psalms, which means today is the day that I pack up my Psalms books and put them back on the shelf, which is at the end of these sermon series, it's always an interesting feeling that I deal with, that it's the excitement of moving on to something different, especially after 33 messages in this series. What is it, 10, 11 months going back to last October. It was challenging. Psalms I knew from the beginning it was going to be a challenging book to go through, but I've found it really encouraging, really interesting to see how, even though we have, when you look through the entirety of the book, you have 150 of these poems, of these songs, of these pieces of art. Every one of them is unique. But at the same time, there are so many groupings within the 150, and there's even the unifying themes that run through all of them that I think we sort of tried to connect here with Psalm 150. The idea, starting in the beginning, where there's beginning of Psalms with Psalm 1, where there's two paths. There's the path of the righteous and the path of the wicked. And which one are you going to choose? Like we've said repeatedly, there's no third option. It is a clear binary choice: righteous, wicked. It's one or the other. And then along the way, we keep talking about the idea of judgment coming, and so often, David and the other psalmists, they ask for judgment. Why? Because they're walking the path of righteousness. And in doing so, they don't fear judgment. They want judgment because that means they're going to receive the justice that they're looking for from the oppressors, from those that are opposing them. And we look at those moments of anger, those moments of wrath, and we can see the end result of the path of wickedness. But then here we talk about the wrap up of the entire book, and in Psalm 150 we see the end of the path of the righteous. It makes me think of, one of my favorite quotes is from the Westminster Shorter Catechism. What is the chief end of man? The chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. That's the purpose of our creation. That's why we're here. It's to glorify God. It's to worship God. That is what we're made to do. We sometimes in that context talk about tools. And I was working in my shed last weekend, and I needed to pound in a nail. And anybody that works on projects, at least like me, knows that when you need to pound in a nail, that's when it's really difficult to find your hammer. And I looked at one of my wrenches and I said, I could probably pound in the nail with the wrench, but that's not what the wrench is made for. So it's not going to go well. I'm going to hit my thumb. I'm going to smash my hand. I'm going to break something. So I went and looked for the hammer, because that's what the hammer is made for. We're made like that. When we're doing what we're made to do, it just goes so much better, and we can feel that sense of fulfillment, that I am doing what I was made to do, to glorify God. And in the midst of doing that, then we enjoy Him. We feel the joy that comes from doing what we're made to do. And so we worship God. Why? Because of who He is, because of what He's done, because He is worthy of the worship. It's not simply that we were made to do something that makes us miserable. We're made to do something that's worth doing, that fills us with joy and fulfillment, because it is who we are. And because we reflect on what we're doing, glorifying God, we're worshiping a God that is worthy of that worship, because of who He is, because of what He has done, because that there is nothing within God that isn't worthy of it. There's nothing to hold us back. There's nothing to say, well, I'm going to do this because it's what I'm supposed to do, but I'm going to have to overlook this piece. I'm going to have to overlook that piece. I'm going to have to, get past these reservations that I have to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Well, there's nothing in God that causes those reservations. There's nothing in God that says, well, I'm going to do this despite the fact that he could really work on that, or he could tweak that, or get a little bit better at that. It's not there. God is perfect. He is fully and completely worthy of worship. There's nothing in him that would keep us from holding back, so we can pour everything into it without reservation, because it's what we're made to do, and because he is so completely and totally worth it. And then we can just rest in that knowledge of knowing that we're on the path of righteousness, and we're coming to the end. And when we look ahead then to the hope at the end of all things that we're continually looking ahead towards, we can see that eternal rest and peace and joy of just enjoying God forever, because we're living in this eternal moment of worship and praise and glorifying him and doing what we were made to do. And when we get a glimpse of that in worship today, we can see why that hope for eternity is what's supposed to energize us and keep us driving forward now, because it's such a beautiful and glorious future that it can help us push through the mud and the muck and the pain and the suffering and the misery that so often comes into our lives now. It's a beautiful picture. It's a wonderful promise that we have, and it's something that we should be engaging with consistently every single day. That idea of worshiping God, of glorifying him and enjoying him forever. So I hope that we keep a tight grip on that, and that we remind ourselves of that every day. And that's the gospel. It's recognizing who we are, who Jesus is, what he did, and in seeing what he did and who he is, it drives us to worship, and it drives us to proclaim that to the world around us that needs to hear it. So I hope that's encouraging. I hope that we can reflect on that consistently, and I hope that we can push forward in that truth. And that's the Psalms. For the next month or so, we're going to bounce around and do a couple of different things. Before, in the month of October, we're going to have a new setting, a whole new look, and start a new study of the book of Hebrews. So next week, as we're celebrating the Lord's Supper, as we do with the first Sunday of the month, pretty much every month, we're going to have a sort of extended time looking at the Lord's Supper, communion, and what it is, what its background is, how we should be engaging it, so that we don't take it for granted, and so we can reflect a little bit more on what we're doing. So that's going to be next Sunday. Hope to see you either in church or joining us online. Hopefully our technical issues don't come back again, but if they do, we'll try and communicate that with people. But we'll see you around. God bless.